Thousands of years before we were born, Egypt was ruled by the mysterious kings called the pharaohs. They were the ones who built the pyramids. About 100 years ago, all colleges discovered the grave of a child pharaoh. His name was Tutankhamun. His tomb was found deep in the Valley of the Kings of Plays, where lots of water Egyptians were buried. Over 5,000 precious objects were placed in his tomb to serve him in his afterlife. Thrones, beds, chariot, precious fabrics, game boards and statues were found next to his mummy. Most of his treasures were made out of gold, even and precious stones. His body was placed inside a coffin that was then placed inside another coffin and then another. The inner coffin is the most magnificent. It is made by 110 kilos of solid gold. There's not one of Egypt's most powerful rulers. We know a lot about his life because his tomb is the only one that has never been robbed. Archaeologists. So the tomb, almost as it was from Tutankhamun, was buried. The treasures they found help us to understand why tomb mothers have been drilling in the desert for centuries. Tomb is one of Egypt's oldest professions, even in ancient times. Tombers were plundered for their valuable objects. And whenever they can catch them, the authorities brought the robbers to justice. Almost the same thing happened nearly 3,000 years later in Deir El Behri, the famous Valley of the Kings. There in 1871, a young man called Ahmed El-Rassul from the village of Corner accidentally discovered a hidden tomb in the belly of a mountain near his home. He spread the news to his family, and soon the whole village hadn't leave occupation. Stealing from the long dead. He became to others and stealing their only source of living. They began trading their find with the dealers from Luxor and Cairo, who were always eager for new antiquities to sell to European tourists and collectors. Soon many of the objects from the treasures of Deir El Behri started to appear in the West. They included beautifully illustrated funnily papyri and royal shabdi, all in perfect condition. Egyptian authorities started to suspect that something was going on and decided to launch an investigation. After 10 years of looting, pressure of the authorities on Ahmed El-Rassul brother forced him to confess, and he took them to the path that led to the hidden tomb. When archaeologists and Neil Bush finally arrived to investigate the long-lost tomb, he was stunned by what he saw. We came upon cases of porcelain fernery offerings, and when we reached the town of the passage, cost of money cases came to view. Collecting my senses, I make the best examination of them. I could by the light of my lamp and wand saw they contained royal mummies, and yet that was not good. The end chamber, and they're standing against the walls or lying on the floor. I found even a greater number of mummy cases of stupendous size and weight. It felt as if I was looking into the faces of my own ancestors. The tomb didn't just contain a couple of months. The discovery was huge. There are more than 50 kings, queens and other royal bodies in this one place. Booth could not afford aging for long, fearing more theft by the locals, who decided to clear the tomb. Or great haste to your work. It's packed in sailcloth and matter what on their way by boat to Cairo. One of the biggest surprises was that the mummies were from different dynastic periods. Among them were Asked Merit Amen in the 17th dynasty, Tutmosis III from the 18th, and Seti I from the 19th. What happened? Why had a single tomb yielded the mummies of so many kings and queens? After careful investigation, the answer came to push. This was an ancient hiding place for the Egyptian royal dead. Priests had moved the mummies from one tomb to the other to protect them from ancient tomb robbers. You might ask, why does the leading of tombs matter? The ancient Egyptians believed that death is not the end, but the beginning of a new life. They believed that if the body was preserved, the soul would continue to live in it. As they couldn't stop the decay completely, they used the art of mummification and discovered clever ways to preserve their dead. They bury their dead in big leaves, leaving food and whatever other objects the dead person loved nearby. The tomb of Makhed, of his uncle and nobleman from the 9th dynasty, contained 25 sets of small figurines. These miniature figures represent activities with he enjoyed in life and that he wished to see repeated in his afterlife, but for us today, they are priceless. News about how the ancient Egyptians lived so many years ago. They show us what they bought and sold, what clothes they wore and what they did for fun. Most of the knowledge we have of ancient Egypt comes from ancient tombs. Archaeologists are struggling to save these messages from the paths and to keep up with the looters and unscrupulous dealers. That way the mummies can continue to rest in peace, whilst helping us to understand more about where we came from and how our civilization began.